All right, hello, everyone. Tonight I have a special guest, and I will be posting this on Facebook after we air. So
Yeah, that's
most of our viewers come after it's posted anyway.
gotcha.
So tonight I have a very special guest. And what is your name?
My name is Mariah Taff.
And I'm sorry. Introduce yourself.
That's okay. My name is Mariah Taff. I have been in the Springfield area for about 2 years. It'll be 2 years this August. I started out in the payday loan industry. It's one of the first job that I had down here. So I've gotten a little bit of insight on that, but my career history, I've been a part of law enforcement. I was a certified animal control officer. I went to college and got a associate's degree in criminal justice. So I've got a little bit of background there. So
Okay. Tell us, tonight's topic is the payday loan industry. So you're an industry insider, having actually worked for them. The closest I ever got was a job interview. That's not the same thing as what you have done. Tell us, the first question I'm going to ask, if I took out a payday loan for, say, $200, what's the next thing that's going to happen? How much will I pay back, and how soon?
well, for $200, the particular company that I worked for, if you just wrote the loan, the life of the loan for 2 weeks, which is typically about how long payday loans are, they can go up to 30 days, but you're gonna get reamed over that. But if you're gonna take out just $200, you'd probably pay back around in between anywhere from the 240 range to possibly 280. It depends on what company you go to. Every company's different. They have their own interest rates and they vary from place to place. You're never
Right.
gonna find two that are the same.
Right. So it's a 2-week loan, and the statistics I'm seeing is about almost 90% of your clients will not be able to repay that loan. Is that correct? From the stats I've been seeing?
Eventually, they do get to that point. Eventually, something happens. Life happens, and when you take most of the clients, when they take out these loans, they have every intention and good intent to pay them back, but somebody gets sick, somebody has to go to the hospital. One situation, somebody had taken out some money, and they went on vacation, and that's why they took the money out, but he got too into being into vacation and spending all of his money, and so when he came back from vacation, he couldn't pay his loan. I mean, he lucked out. He lucked out big time. He bought, with his last dollar, bought a scratch-off ticket and won the money that he needed to pay back. So he got extremely lucky there.
That had to be just luck.
It was. He literally he called and he's like, I can't believe this happened. And so, I mean, it was great that he was able to do that, but eventually you do get yourself in a hole that you can't get out of.
Okay. Before I talked to her before tonight's broadcast, so I had to get some things squared away. I didn't want her to come on and I'd be a journalist that just asked all the hard questions. And I asked a few before we came on, and one of the hardest questions, you've already been trained to handle this, isn't this voluntary? Don't people just, no one makes you walk into a payday loan store is what I'm saying.
And that's 100% true. Nobody's going to force you, for the most part, nobody's going to force you to walk into a payday loan store and take out a payday loan or any of the products that they offer. But that's kind of their whole gimmick. They sucker you in. We're trained to be overly nice. We want you to think we're friends or that you're our best friend. And you keep coming in, keep reborrowing, things of that nature. And then the first minute something comes up and, okay, I'll be in there on Friday.
Right.
Friday comes, you don't come in. Okay, well, since you're open on Saturday, I'll be in there on Saturday. Something happens on Saturday. You got called into work. You can't, make it in. I'll come in on Monday. And then eventually it gets to the point where you turn off the charm and it's more robotic, more mechanical in your response. So you're literally geared that way in this industry. They condition you to be that way. Some things you have to do a certain way because it's required by a law or store company policy, something like that. But that's just something that you're going to find in almost any of the payday loan places. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating people go get these loans or anything like that. I don't think you're a bad person if you've ever had a payday loan or if you have to go get one. But believe me, there are better avenues to take than that. Because if you borrow, the max in Missouri is $500. If you borrow $500 and you take a loan out for 30 days, I promise you're going to pay over $700 back on a $500 note. So it's not worth it to do that.
On the surface, it's like only 40% interest, but you got to pay the whole thing in those 30 days. Right. Explain to us what the other kinds of loans. You got the signature loans, like say Sunbelt Credit. You'll get a $500 loan, and you pay it back in 7 installments of $100 each, which is 40%. It's not as extreme as the payday loans. Then there's more of a signature loan. Then you got the title loans. Explain the differences between these industries.
Okay, so you will have some places like Sunbelt Loan that will do strictly signature loans. There are technically four types, of these loans. There's your payday loan, your title loan, installment loan, but there are 2 types of installment loans. There's your signature loan, or you can do an ACH loan, which is attached to your bank account. So, I'm not sure of any other companies that do that, but the company that I was affiliated with, you got a cheaper interest rate if it was ACH. So when it was your time to pay, and everything is written towards your pay dates. That's part of the requirement, or as close as you can get it. If you get paid on Sundays, which there are some places where people do get their pay on Sundays, then it'll be the following business day. But so everything is written to your pay date. The ACH loans, you're going to get the cheaper interest rate, but instead of physically coming in, they can just automatically take it out of your account each time. The signature loans, those are a little bit more risky for the installment loans. You're literally, there's no collateral. There's nothing there, so other than your signature and the fact that you've signed a contract. So with those, you typically get socked with more interest. And then the next step would be, for the bigger amounts, of course, would be the title loans, which you have to own a vehicle. You have to own it outright. There can't be any liens or loans on it. And you have to provide the documentation for that. And then it goes off of a certain percentage. Some places will go, they may give you what it's valued on the internet through Kelley Blue Book or any other website like that. But 90% of the time, they're going to take the lowest value, the lowest trade-in value, and then you're going to get a percentage of that lowest trade-in value. But you're going to pay almost double, maybe even triple, depending on where you go, of what you borrowed. But that's how they make their money. They make you think that at that time they're helping you, and they may very well be helping you. You may have gotten your money stolen for your rent, and if you don't pay your rent, you're going to lose your apartment or house. So at the time, they may be helping you out, but in the long run, it's a gigantic vicious cycle that people get sucked up in, because it never fails. You do really, really well with repaying it and making your payments on time, or whatever the case may be, and then life happens. The what if, or the oh no. And people don't plan that far ahead to cover it. And 90% of the time, when you take out the max amount, unless you have a really, really good job, that's going to be your entire paycheck, if not most of it. So it doesn't help, and that's how you get sucked in, because you have to have that money back because you have other bills. It's great if you don't. I mean, if if you don't have any other bills, please let me know what you're doing. But it sucks you in like that. I can't tell you how many people and it's people that I personally know too. One of my best friends down here, she used to go out and get payday loans, but she made it like her own, what's the word I'm looking for? She made it to where she had her own parameters and she wouldn't borrow any more than $100. So, but overall, you get so caught up and sucked in because you don't have to worry at that point in time, am I going to be able to pay this bill? Will I have money? Will I be able to eat? Things like that.
Talk about some of the other things we talked about earlier, because my memories faded a little bit, and what's it like working for them?
From my experience, it's not fun. It's pretty bad on the employees. You will meet some people that absolutely love their job. And something that I really want to get across to anybody watching, please do remember, if you ever have to take out a payday loan, it's something you really need to think about, but also please keep in mind the people that work there, we're humans too. We have to pay our bills. We have families to feed. We're not there to intentionally hurt you. We have to have a job like everybody else. But from an employee perspective, they don't make it easy. They claim that, well, this is a law, and to be quite honest, I'm not sure if while I was working there, some of the stuff that they said was a law was really a law, but there would be things where it's like, well, you can't deny this person a loan, or you can't turn them down because of this reason. And they're so fearful if you deny somebody a loan that they could be sued. They'll in turn tell you, we're not going to be on the hook for that. If you deny somebody and they think you're discriminating against them, it's going to be you. You're going to get sued. You're going to get fired, and you're going to get, sued, prosecuted, whatever can happen. So it really puts you in between a rock and a hard place. Do I do my job? Do I keep my job? Do I keep feeding my family, paying my bills? Or do I throw everything to the wind and give somebody a loan that I know I shouldn't? Now, if it's completely and totally fraud, which has happened and it happens quite often, people bring in fake pay stubs, bank statements, things of that nature, then it's an obvious don't give them a loan. But one of my heartbreak stories, a person came in that had some things, mental things upstairs. I don't want to give away too much for privacy reasons, but the helpers that brought her in said that this person had to get a loan, and you could just tell that this person didn't even know where they were, who they were, what they were doing. And I was forced to complete something I didn't want to, because I was told that it could be construed as discrimination for assuming things that I didn't have concrete facts for. So it was something I really didn't want to do, and I ended up doing it, and I still feel crummy to this day, and there isn't a day that goes by that I hope and pray that lady's okay, because people that were supposed to be helping her were just using her. So anyways, after I did that, I ended up going in the back and crying, and of course I got, the whole story of, you can't let that bother you, you did the right thing, you have to do that by law, when if hypothetically something like that were to go to court, it very well might be thrown out because said person had something else going on and they weren't in their right mind to agree to that contract. So that's actually why I brought up the criminal justice degree. So that was something else that I always kind of questioned working there. If this is not going to hold up, why is it a law? It should be, should be black and white, but nothing ever is anymore,
Yeah.
especially when dealing with the government and things like that.
Now,
More money.
in the payday lending industry, one of the things I'm trying to understand is shouldn't they do more responsible lending to people that can afford to take out a loan? Shouldn't they do at least some kind of background check before loaning people money on some level? If it was my money, heck yeah, that's my money.
Right. And I don't disagree with that. They should, but they won't because of something called the CFPB, which is a law that pretty much, encompasses the money service businesses. That's what payday loans, title loans, installment loan places are. It's a money service business. That's what differs it from a financial institution, which are banks or credit unions or things of that nature.
What do you think is creating the demand for these places? There's obviously a demand or they wouldn't exist.
Right, exactly. People just in general, some folks aren't good with their money, and I'm not judging anybody. I am totally not okay with my own money. I probably should have an accountant, but
you've enrolled in the financial piece. That's a start.
Yes, that is a start. I am trying to correct my wrongs and be more mindful of my spending. But there are millions of people like me that overindulge. They are on the opposite of overindulging, the instant gratification. And then there are people that really do fall on hard times. It's either because of the economy, something happened, and people just aren't prepared. So that's why there's a demand for it. And as far as like the background checks and things like that, I kind of strayed away from that. They won't do that because it could be discrimination.
But if it was my money, it's not discrimination. It's my money. If you've got bad credit, I'm not basing it on anything but your bad credit.
Mm-hmm.
Based on your credit score, and there's bankruptcies, and oh my God, I'll never get my money back. Look
Right.
at all this. So my decision is purely based on numbers, hardcore, straight up facts.
Right, and I don't disagree with that in the slightest, but, and what I'm about to say, I don't know for a fact, but for companies and businesses, debt like that is good for them because it's a tax write-off. They can use it on their taxes in that type of business. Hospitals, other businesses, it's not just money service industry, but for them, it's good for them. It doesn't make sense to me, but it's something that they could claim as a write-off. I personally think that it should be based off of that because you're giving the person more of a chance. If somebody is struggling, maybe they haven't made the best decisions in their life, and you're able to do a quick credit check or something, and then that would potentially help determine, okay, we're maybe not going to give you a loan for $1,000. We might try half and go with $500 and see how you fare. I think it's giving people more of a fighting chance if they did that, but at the same time, you're going to have people that are hacked off. They just want the cash right then and there, and half the time it takes a little bit more effort, if you will, to get that information, because people will, all it is to get a payday loan most of the time is you take in a pay stub and you fill out whatever application they have, or some places require a little bit more, like a debit card, not a prepaid card, a debit card, to a bank account that only has your name on it, and or a check that you will either physically write out to the company, and if you don't come in for your payment or pay them at all, they will cash it. So it actually can hurt you even more because every time they try and run it, your bank has the potential to charge you and then overdraw your account, and then your bank's going to charge you for your account being overdrawn.
Right.
So I think if they did do that, they'd probably fare a little bit better. They'd probably have more people that would go in there and take out loans. Even if the interest rates were lower, I would think they would have more people coming in to get loans. But
Right.
it's not going to make those CEOs and those bigwigs the most money.
But maybe it would, because if they lower the interest rate, and this is proven in the housing market, if the interest rate is lower, people will spend more.
Mm-hmm.
They'll borrow larger amounts. So lowering the interest rate on these payday loan companies may not be the best solution. You might be helping them.
Right, but for me, what I think would work is don't change the parameters, on a payday loan, leave it at the cap of 500, but don't make the overall percentage rate
So bad.
so asinine that you're never going to get yourself out of a hole. And that's what it does. Now, part of the reason when I said, it's not going to make those bigwigs money, it will make them a lot of money if they lower it, but this is all high risk lending. It's called high risk lending because they don't run your credit. They have no idea if you're going to walk back through the door. So that's part of the reason as well why they charge such a high interest rate.
About what percentage of your loans are default? 8, 9? There's got to be a certain percentage. What do you think, based on when you've been there, what was the default rate? Just take a wild guess.
It was very high. It was very high. I would say 70 to 30% ratio. 70% default and 30% in good standing.
You mean 70% of the loans are in default?
Roughly, yeah. We had a bunch of people that fell into that hole and just couldn't crawl back out. It was just difficult.
Okay, so now let's go to the next step. What does the company do next? Once you go into default, what do they do to get their money back?
Okay, so with the payday loans, I explained if you don't make your payment, you don't come in, they're gonna take that collateral, which is your bank account, or that check, they're gonna take that to your bank and try and get their money. And then if it comes back returned, then you're gonna have a debt on your hands, and then they will blow your phone up. They will call every single person that they can get a number on.
Can they garnish your wages eventually?
That is up to the company. I know some companies out there will take people to court over payday loans. I know some won't. But for an installment
If they
loan,
know where you work, they can go right to your employer.
they potentially could if they really wanted to try. But it's like I said, it's up to the company. I know there are some companies that don't play around with you. If you don't pay them, they're gonna take you to court. And then there are other companies that will say, we're not going to fool with the payday loans. Lesson learned, you'll never be able to come back in our door and get a loan from us. But thanks with the title loans, your vehicle is your collateral. So if you don't pay that loan, you don't make your payments, they will come and they will repossess your vehicle. Because what happens is they put the lien on your vehicle, so your title gets sent to the bank. So their name can be put on the title, so that way they have the legal right to come and take it from you if you don't make your payments.
And that industry, they count on you not paying them back.
Right, because
they
then
almost gamble on it that you won't.
Yeah, and then they get to go and auction off your vehicle and hopefully make some of the money back.
Kind of like a pawn store.
Exactly. Yeah, that's especially with the title loans. And then the installment loans, I don't know what some of the other payday loan places do, but almost the bigger loans, almost a majority of the places that I can think of, at least will tell you that they'll take you to court or sue you in some form, even if they follow through with it, that I don't know. But it's just a very hairy situation, a slippery slope to go down, and it's not something that I encourage people to do. But I mean, I've seen people from every aspect, all different walks of life come through the company that I worked for. We had folks that had been in the Department of Corrections and had just gotten out, and they needed help getting back on their feet. They just got a job. And then I've seen people that made very good money, and you couldn't even venture a guess to why they walked in there. So it's not people that are just poor. It's not people that are in poverty. It's people that make great money, own their own businesses, things like that. So it's I understand why people go in there sometimes, because they really are between that rock and that hard place. and they're too embarrassed to ask for help
Well-
from family or friends. So
I'm preparing for the show. I've been watching several documentaries, and they paint a picture of it's mostly the poor people. Most of these title loans are in poor districts, but when I look in Springfield, they're everywhere. They're in every neighborhood. Because Springfield is a diverse city anyway, but they appear to be everywhere.
Mhm.
They're not in a specific poor area. My wife and I were in a poor district. We drove through it, and we discovered there's a food desert here in Springfield, in this particular area of town. I said, this place is a desert. She said, what do you mean? And I said, I didn't think food deserts existed in Springfield because we got Price Card over here, Dollar General right there, Walmart right there. I don't live in a food desert. Where I'm located is not a desert. I mean, I can walk to Price Card. But we drove through a certain section of town. It was a desert. And I was like, there's hardly a convenience store. And that was the only thing there was. High dollar convenience store. And because in these documentaries on this topic, they paint a picture, if you watch them, of mostly poor people. They're preying on the poor. Do you still believe that some of that is true?
It definitely is true, because one of the things that the gimmick of these companies are, they send employees out to, or managers, but either way, still employees of the company, and they market.
You mail a person a check. My wife got one of those. I whipped it up.
That is one of the local lenders' marketing strategies. Some of them will have pens, bumper stickers, magnets, cups, koozies, you name it. Stuff that, I mean, I love pens. I have a basket full of pens. I am a pen hoarder. So yeah, you tell me here's a free pen. I'm gonna take it. And that's one of the best tools. So almost every place around here, I promise you, if you go in and ask them, just go in and ask them if they have free pens or anything like that. They'll be like, yeah, sure, we have free pens or something free. I know in particular, Speedy Cash, they at one point in time were giving out free bottle openers, the keychains with their logo on it. So they do stuff like that, and that's how they get how they get their name out there. And then they advertise in different, like where I'm from, we have something called a penny saver, which is just kind of like a snippet of all the different local sales and ads and whatnot. And then there'll be stuff like that in there. There was a Advance America. There was one of those where I'm originally from, and they had stuff in there all the time. But they have it right in there in those sales, because two of the biggest explanations that were always voluntary that I got for why people walked in the door were, I needed gas money, I need to pay my rent. Well, three, or food. I don't have food to feed my kids. I don't have money to go buy food. So we get a lot of folks that would come in there and borrow money for that. But they would see that ad when they're looking for sales. Like, I've got maybe $20. What can I scrape together, to get by till payday? Right there. It's in those ads. Now, some places do marketing that's a little bit bigger and broader. They'll have billboards and things like that. TV ads and radio advertisements as well, but it varies on how they want to do that stuff. No place does it the same. If you took all the lending places in Springfield, from financial institutions like legitimate banks all the way down to Missouri Title Max, places like that, they might have the free stuff, but each place is going to be different, other than the pens. But they're always going to have something different, and it's to sucker people in to look at that, so that way in the back of your mind, oh no, I've run out of money. What can I do? I don't want to ask my mom. My mom just gave me $200 last week for whatever. Hey, I remember seeing that ad. Or hey, I have a pen. Hey, I have a bottle opener. Stuff like that.
Yeah. A lot of what I see is it's not how much it's a lot of mismanagement on a personal level.
It truly is. That brings me back to my comment earlier. You know, if you ever tell me you've gone and gotten a payday loan or something like, I might tell you that's not the best choice. There are better avenues, but
I have personally watched a girl. I was at a restaurant and she came in. She sat at the counter. She had a little girl with her. Okay, here's how the story goes. She had like a 4-year-old little girl, and I know this girl is probably a waitress because that's what she said. And she had a pile of scratcher tickets, a whole pile of them, probably $20 to $30 worth. And then she said these words. I'll never forget it. Oh my God. She said, I don't have anybody to buy groceries for my little girl. My food stamp card hasn't been loaded. My mouth dropped. I can't believe the irony of what she said. There's $30 in groceries sitting right there in front of you, sweetie. You just blew it on scratcher tickets.
right.
I saw that, and it has forever changed me. It's like I look at things a whole new perspective. I'm going, a lot of that goes on. They just don't handle the money they have.
It's very true. I mean, but then again, it's kind of one of those things where, well, like what we talked about a little bit earlier, it's like the war on drugs. There's, unless you take away the demand for it, they're always going to be there. So
You can't seem to win the war. And I feel bad for Dave Ramsey. He's just one man trying to help. He does help a lot of families. There's no doubt about it. But there's not many financial gurus like him helping families the way he does.
well, with what he says, if everybody were smart with money, he wouldn't have those tours. So
You're probably right, but at least he's doing something. He practices what I call preventive medicine to keep people from getting in that situation. He may be a little bit biblically based, but the basics concepts are like having a savings account, emergency fund,
yeah, and
living
actually,
within your means.
right, and actually, that's one of the best things you can do for those moments is to have one of those. So I recommend before you go get a payday loan, you need to look at the bigger picture. You shouldn't live in hypotheticals, but there's always going to be something that happens. Life happens, Murphy's Law. So you need to try and plan ahead. I know it's difficult, and sometimes it's one thing right after another. A personal example of how I've never had a payday loan or installment loan or title loan, but personal example of how I mismanaged money and got put in between a rock and hard place. This was just shortly after Christmas, around the New Year. I spent the extra money that I had on stuff for a New Year's party. I had friends coming over, and family gave me some money for Christmas. And I was like, hey, my bills are paid, I'm good to go, I'm gonna, go spend that money and buy food and drinks and stuff for this party. So I did, and I kid you not, a couple days later, somebody, our roommate had some friends over. They invited their friend over, their friend brought their girlfriend.
Oh boy.
And on the way out the door, they took about $800 out of my wallet. That was our rent money. And I was literally, of course I was hacked off. Anybody would be. But I was in panic mode because I didn't have any money saved. I didn't have anything.
Valuable lesson to put your money in a safe place.
Yeah, that it most certainly did. And then it as well, it not only taught me, not to leave money out like that or be so accessible, but it taught me that things like that will happen. That's the first time I've ever had an amount like that stolen from me, and I was literally freaking out. I had no idea what I was going to do. And so the first thing I did was I called mom. I called my mom, and I was like, this is what happened. She helped me out as much as she could. I take that back. I had like $125 to my name. So she helped me out with the rest of it. But stuff like that will happen. Your car will break down. Some unexpected bill will happen. And it puts you in that hole, though. Unless you've got some money, stashed somewhere.
Dave Ramsey teaches you at least 500 if you're low income.
Yeah, 500 if you're low income. If you make $25 or $30,000 household income.
That's the median income for Springfield.
$1,000 saved, and you get it saved fast, and then hit on your debts. So
yeah, get them paid down with what he said. Gazelle intensity calls it.
Yes, and it's just FYI, the Financial Peace University is a great program. I would recommend it.
I do too. It'll prevent you from needing a payday place.
Exactly, and that's the demand for them. If something happens and people need money, and you can get it in minutes. The difference, the part of the reason people would go to these lending places like this, are because you go into a bank, you got to present, all your documentation showing, yes, I can repay this, and then if you don't have enough, you got to go get a cosigner. And then you have to, wait for the approval.
I have heard that there are more payday places than McDonald's and Starbucks combined.
I honestly wouldn't put it, I wouldn't put that statistic out to pasture. I came from an itty bitty town, so there were like two lending companies.
Payday, but more predatory than title loan, payday loans, signature loans. Those kinds of stores more than the McDonald's and Starbucks combined.
Yes, and not just talking about like payday loans and title loan places being predatory lending. Some of the online colleges are predatory lending as well.
Your credit cards are predatory, are they not? Look at how many pages you get your agreement. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it must be 20 pages here, in teeny weeny print too.
Right, and they expect you to read it and know exactly what you're talking about. A lot of people don't know that almost every credit card, and I have one, I have an active one, so I'm not shaming anybody that has a credit card. Been there, done that, trying to get away from that. But I promise you, if you still have that little pamphlet that comes with it, that agreement, by using this card you agree to all these terms, in there is going to be something about mandatory arbitration. That is the worst thing you can ever enter into. In a nutshell, what that is the person that you're entering this agreement with has the right to take you to court, and you don't have any legal repercussion. You may not even be given the opportunity to get an attorney. Now, there are loopholes and variations to where that may not be applicable, but in an overall nutshell, that is what happens. Okay. And in some of these payday loan places too, you have to sign mandatory arbitration. People don't understand what that is, and when they get the explanation, it's that's just saying that we're gonna we'll have an arbiter. I can't think of the actual word.
I had a friend of mine. She started one of these places way back when, way before they ever exploded. She learned it by being an underwriter for loans. But you need to explain the nuts and bolts, because when you walk into some of these title loan places, it's clearly explained. If you borrow $500, you're going to be paid $700 on the wall. Your credit cards don't even do that. Some of your legitimate banks don't even do that. But these title loan places do. And explain how some of them follow that and some don't. And what are the nuts and bolts? What you see on that wall, what is really going on?
Okay, so like I said, keep in mind every place is different. If you walk into a particular lending place, you will see somewhere where there's either a gigantic chart or an itty bitty one that has a breakdown of the amounts you'll be paying. That has to be, and you'll have it on your contracts as well. that's called Truth in Lending, or TILA, boxes for short, that breaks it down. That says you're borrowing this much, your interest rate is this much, these are your payments, this is the amount you're going to be paying back.
Yeah, it's clearly explained to you.
They have to. That is law. And that's with banks as well. So, some of the laws that banks have to follow.
But your credit cards don't do that.
No. Because, and the reason why, those eventually end. You can have a credit card for 20 years. You can be paying on a loan for 20 years. It depends. It depends on the size of the loan. But they eventually end. Credit cards, you can knock that, keep rolling it over, keep using it. You can do the same thing with loans, but eventually you'll get to a point where you'll pay it off, even if you refinance. But anywho, getting back to the nuts and bolts, you're going to walk in there and you're going to see something posted about, if you borrow $50, you're going to pay back $60. If you borrow $60, you're going to pay back $80. Things like that. And then it's just going to keep getting bigger. So you're going to see that. And when you go up and you talk to him about, the information, is like, okay, so tell me, what does it look like I'm going to be repaying if I take out $100? And some places might be, well, if you just borrow $100 and you pay it in full on the day it's due, which is typically every 2 weeks. That's a payday loan, is every 2 weeks. Unless you are on a fixed income, like with Social Security or disability, then it's written to your payday, which is once a month. And you are going to get raked over the coals with that, just FYI. But I'll come back to that in a minute. So with payday loans, they're typically 2 weeks. They're going to tell you, well, if you just borrow $100, then you're going to pretty much be repaying anywhere from $120 to maybe $140. Just rough estimate. Like I said, every place is different. And they want you to think, oh, okay, so I borrow this amount. That's not that bad. That might even be cheaper than if I went to a bank. It very well could be true. I don't know. But all they hear is, we can get you money, and we can get you money as soon as you fill out this application and give us your information, and we enter you into our system. That's what people hear. And they don't ask, nobody ever asks the right questions, but then again, how do you know to ask the right questions? So, but nobody ever asks the right questions or enough information. It's always, well, how much am I going to have to pay back? And then that's it. They'll ask if they can make payments, something like that, but they're not going to ask you, so overall, if I drag this out for 6 weeks, how much am I going to pay back then? Because with some companies, if you make payments, you will have interest on each of those payments. Mm-hmm. Now the max for the state of Missouri is 75%. 75% interest. So, if you keep making those payments, eventually, it's not going to be that 120 to 140 range that they possibly told you that you'd be paying back. It's going to be, at the bare minimum, at least double. Most of the time, some of the loans that I saw written were triple. Some places with the higher rates are quadruple. It just, every place is different. But they tell you that. And then if you ask, well, what's the highest interest rate? This is where I get to, nobody asks the right questions. What's the highest interest rate? Oh, it's going to be somewhere of upwards, 2, 3, 4, 500%. And then if you do ask that, they're going to come back with, oh, but that's if you do this, this, and this. They train people to not lie to you, but if you don't ask that question or the right question, it just doesn't come up.
I understand that.
So that's another gimmick, and that's why I say it's really hard on employees, because the minute I did a loan for somebody, I laid everything out. I wanted you to be the most informed about the decision you were making. And something else that I want to get across to folks, if push comes to shove and you absolutely have to do this, listen to what you're being told. Write it down. Plan ahead of time. Ask questions. I can't tell you. The max amount is $500 in Missouri. So 90% of the people that were able to get the max amount, and they come in and well, how much you need to borrow? $200. The minute they hear, well, you're approved for $500. How much would you like? Do you want to stay, with that $500, or you want to go with the $2? They go, oh no, I'll take the $5.
Of course they will.
Because they heard they can get more money.
That's suggestive selling. Oh my God.
That is not what you want to do. If you really only need that, take what you need. In this case, more is not better. More is worse.
Yeah, because I feel that's what's going to happen if we try to regulate them and make them lower the interest rate. It's going to make it worse because people will know, oh, I can borrow more. And the housing industry and college tuitions have proved that to be absolutely correct. Even your credit cards, well, the interest rate's only a tiny bit. I'll spend more.
Yeah.
And and like Dave Ramsey said, you don't feel that pain when you swipe the card. When you're using cash, you do feel that pain. I know, I use cash. And believe me, every dollar, there goes another dollar. Oh, God, now I've only got 15 in my wallet. Oh, my God, that's painful. It is.
Yeah, and it's something. It's something that you can physically see. A credit card, you're just going to see some numbers, on a receipt and on a screen or something. With cash, that's something tangible. Tangible means something you can touch.
And you're letting it go.
Yes. So.
I only got 15 left in my wallet.
With Payday, bringing it back to payday loans real quick, if you borrow $500, if you don't have the money to pay that off in 2 weeks, I can promise you it will be over $700 that you're repaying if you do the payments. So once again, and I'm gonna probably annoy the crap out of you folks. Do not take more than you need. Don't do it. That's how people get suckered in. That's how you fall in that hole. That's how you never get out.
All right, I've got a question for you. My friend Jolene, this is where I got the topic from. She had a posting on Facebook about this very topic. There was people with signs. I guess it was, I don't know where the location was, and that's how I met you. Because I made a statement. Hey, I'd like to do a topic, and hey, Jolene, can you come on and talk to me about this? Because I'm just as passionate. What your group has got together, obviously. What would be the solution? What do you propose?
For the money service industry in general?
Or the payday loans, signature loans, those types of loans. What solution are you wanting to bring to the table?
One half of me is saying, just get rid of them. They're not going to do you any good. Get rid of them.
But you can't do that. They'll just go underground and start breaking people's legs again, like they used to do.
Exactly. That's why I said one half. One half is, get rid of them, they're evil. The other half is, I don't want to say make it more legitimized, but they need to put stricter laws in place and make it a little bit more like when you go to a bank. They need to, I fully believe they should be running folks' credit. And part of the reason, too, they don't do that is that costs some money.
Landlords are starting to run credit.
Yes, landlords are. They need to do a quick credit check. It doesn't have to be a hard hit. It can be a soft hit. So what that means, and this is something that we're taught, especially for installment loans, that I just had a thought that
That's okay.
remind me about this real quick when I'm done about building credit. But the installment loans report to credit. So because of that, we do a soft pull, which means they're just going to kind of be like, is the person's credit really crappy or is it kind of good? Where's it at? It's not this person's credit is a 725 or this person's credit is a 600. That's the difference.
Well,
this is what this is.
Credit scores are based on how much debt you have. Obviously, if a person's got a 700 credit score, they're probably deep in debt.
Right. right? Which
So
is,
that's what builds your credit score is debt.
and it doesn't make sense, but
That's true.
they should, because then that'll also tell them that it'll give you an indication they've got a high credit score, which and that's how they fool everybody is, oh, I've got great credit, my credit is 800. That's great that that's your credit score, but that should be an indication right there that they've borrowed a whole bunch. And
you're
either
still
they paid it
deep in debt.
right. Either they paid it all back, with if you can do that, that's amazing, or they're still paying on it. So that's something that should definitely happen. They should definitely take a harder look at credit instead of just putting it on one product. They need to. The next thing, they need to have a more strenuous application. I can tell you, generally speaking, most applications are your name, your social security number, date of birth, driver's license number, where you work, maybe a previous employer, how much you make, net and gross income, your banking information, and then references. So that's most generally it. Which I know some banks have even less than that. Once again, came from a very small community, came from a farming community, so pretty much it was.
Marshfield, that's where I went to school. Not much different.
Yeah, pretty much it was. Hey, do you have you have a job? Yeah, let me see a pay stub. Oh, okay, we can maybe do this. But anywho, so the application needs to be more strenuous. It needs to have more of a work history, because I can't tell you how many times I'd see the same people in. Yeah, I got a new job. A couple weeks later, I got fired from that one, or I quit it, and I got this job. I just started. So can you give me an extension on my pay date, on my due date? That's a common occurrence thing. Yeah.
Have you had people? This is one I hear in the documentaries. I've been preparing for the show. They borrow from one to pay the other. Borrow from Peter to pay Paul.
Absolutely, yes. I don't know if the other lenders in Springfield, if they have multiple locations, if you can go there, go to one and then borrow from another. I know of a few places that do that, and I have seen people go in and borrow from. Borrow from Speedy Cash over on Battlefield, then they might go to another one. I have no idea if they have multiple locations, just FYI. They might go to the Speedy Cash on Battlefield, but go over to the one on National and, borrow from the one on National to pay the one on Battlefield. Or you'll have people that will borrow from Speedy Cash and then go to Missouri Title Max to get a title loan to pay Speedy Cash. By the way, that never works out in your favor either. So that don't do that. Something that is kind of nice, if you do get in a rut, most places have an emergency repayment plan. So that is something that you can talk to them about. But 9 times out of 10, you can only get one of those once a year.
Okay, here's something else I want to add. We discussed this earlier too. Let's say you have one of these loans, okay? Let's say I borrow $500 and I'm on my third payment. You'll come to me and say, Jeremiah, would you like to have another $100? I can give you $100 right now.
That is one of the gimmicks, but in particular,
it's kind of like they don't ever want you to totally repay it. They want to keep you in that cycle.
Especially with installment and title loans, because the title loan, that's cut and dry. Your collateral is your vehicle, but they do want you to try and refinance that, because once you refinance, you start all over again, essentially. Within reason, you can refinance to change your pay date, to get a lesser amount, or to, let's say you borrow $5,000 in an installment loan, and you get it down to $2,500.
Okay, and cut it in half. Let's cut it in half.
Okay, and then, but you need to walk out of there with more money, something else happened. They want you to refinance so they can maybe go to, let's say, an extra $1,000. So now you're at $3,500. They can refinance you and get you that extra $1,000, but then you start the cycle over again, just maybe with a lesser amount. But from seeing it personally, I always went back to the max amount they could borrow.
Here's another question you may or may not know the answer to. They claim that they are rebuilding your credit. How much of that goes on?
Payday, generally speaking, payday loans do not build your credit. They don't do jack squat for your credit. They hurt your credit. Some installment loans will help build your credit. Title loans don't, that I'm aware of. Don't.
They all advertise that they do.
Some of them do. I know Mariner Finance and World Finance, they do help your credit a little bit, but that's not a given. So
if someone was to pay off the loan, would that get reported to the credit bureau?
Yes, it would get reported to the credit bureau.
That you paid the loan off?
Yes. Most definitely, if you don't pay it back, it's going to get reported because they're going to sock it to you.
Obviously, yeah.
But it depends on the company. It really does. It's up to the CFO and CEO and whoever really owns the company.
Because I've heard some of them are unscrupulous. They don't report anything.
There are some that don't at all. There are some that won't even. It doesn't matter if it's a title, installment, payday. They won't report it. Period.
Even if you pay it off.
Even if you pay it off, yeah, they don't.
They only report it when you don't pay it off.
Yes. And payday loans, they don't report to your credit at all. But if you don't pay them back, it hurts your credit.
Yeah.
So
then they report
just FYI. Don't ever go into a predatory lending place thinking I'm going to build my credit. If you need to build your credit, my advice is go to a bank, have a conversation with them, and then
some banks now offer programs to let you do that. Don't
yes, they get a secure credit card or whatever they might call it. I know some banks call it some small banks somewhere called it a safety card, but most generally speaking, how those operate. You go in and you put money down for like a CD. For easy math, let's say you do $500 CD. So they issue you a secure credit card. You use it just like a credit card. You have to pay a little bit of interest, and then you get a monthly billing statement to repay that CD for what you've used it for. But this is how it doesn't hurt you. Let's say you can only pay back $250 of that $5. That CD is there. There's that collateral that they can take it out of, and that will help build your credit. Don't go to a payday loan place and ask them if it's going to build your credit, because you will get some people that will lie to you and be like, oh yeah, sure, how much you need. They're going to do whatever they can to get that loan. But first of all, any place can't lie to you. That's illegal. They have to tell you the truth. They have to tell you that, they can't beat around the bush. However, there's always a loophole. If you don't ask the right questions, how are they going to know to answer?
Right. Back on the insider, you say that are some of the branch managers, are they motivated? Do they get a percentage of that loan? Is there a commission at all? Is there a motivation here?
Some places you will get a commission or some kind of a gimmick, extra money. The company that I was affiliated with didn't do that. But some companies, if there's multiple locations, if your store does really well, you get a monthly bonus. It depends on the company. So sometimes there is an ulterior thing driving people to get these loans, and then sometimes it's just money in your pocket, to pay your bills.
Now, some people out there are taking jobs in these places. Tell us a little bit, like, I had a friend of mine, he said he spent a lot of time on the phone, probably debt collecting. Am I correct?
You will become a phone jockey. That's what I used to call myself. you're going to spend 90% of your day on the phone. So I had to do debt calls and delinquency calls 3 times a day. FYI, for creditor information, I know you can't start calling folks until 9 in the morning. So if they're out on the West Coast, you have to...
Bonus for those who paid on time was my experience. Okay.
So, some people, they do. If you pay on time or you pay it off, they might give you a bonus or a discount or something like that. But it's not always guaranteed. A lot of them have a refer a friend program where you might get $25 to $50 or whatever, and that is another. I'm going to tell you right now, that is a ripoff. If they have a way where they can give you that $25 to satisfy their marketing, because if they market it that way, they got to give it to you. But they will do something so that way there's, an ulterior attachment. So,
right.
Like the company that I worked for, they would do prepaid cards, and a lot of these lenders do prepaid cards as well. Those necessarily aren't a bad thing if that's all you're doing, but they would put the money on a prepaid card, but then there are all these fees that were attached to it, all these fees. So really, you might get to use $10. So they do it to satisfy their marketing, and because they were using this outside vendor for this service as well, it was a cycle of, hey, this is benefiting us, not you.
Another question that just came to my mind. Another gimmick they use is first loan free. Tell us about that.
The company that I was affiliated with did not do that.
But you know something about it.
Yes. Actually, I live over on Sunshine, and there is a payday loan not too far from my apartment. And they advertise first loan free. So what that means is it's interest free, but there's a catch. 90% of the time, 90% of the time there's a catch, and it's always in fine print. And they may read over the contract. Once again, that's a company thing. Really, the big thing they got to tell you is the TILA, the truth in lending. But the interest free loans, or the first loan free. So you go in there, and let's just say it's 20 for every 100 you borrow. So you go in there and you borrow $100, and to pay it back, it's going to be $120. Okay. Interest free. Your first loan would be interest free, so you don't pay that $20. But if you make a payment, they're going to come around and get you. Some places don't do that, and some places really will honor that, where it's, nope, we're not going to charge you.
If you pay it off in 30 days.
Yeah, or 2 weeks, or whatever their contract or agreement is. Some places will do that. But I promise you, however they set it up, there's always going to be a catch.
Hook and sinker, he's saying.
Yeah, no, seriously. That's how they get you to, oh, I can borrow the max amount from here and pay it back, and I won't have to pay any, interest. That's their marketing to sucker you in. And of course, when you walk in there, they're going to make you all, feel warm and cozy. And hey, how are you? I'm so-and-so.
That's part
nice
of your job
to meet you.
training, right?
Exactly. They want you to feel warm and cozy and like you have a friend. And I'm not saying by any means that I didn't enjoy or want to hear some of the people that came into my store that wanted to talk to me. I'm not saying that in the slightest, but
90% of them will tell you their story why they think they need the money.
yeah,
Volunteer it. You don't even have to ask.
You cannot ask. You can't say, well, what do you need this money for? But I promise you, they will volunteer an answer. They won't, they won't beat around the bush. Whether it's the truth or not, whether you want to hear it or not, you're going to get an answer.
Starts a vicious cycle.
It does start a vicious cycle. It's terrible. Going back to what I talked about a little bit earlier for people that just joined in to watch. They make you feel all warm and cozy, and a lot of these people do have every intention of paying these back, but then Murphy's Law happens, something happens, they get sick, they don't, they get fired, they don't have that income there, and it's, I can't make my payment, or I can't pay this off. And pretty much, they're going to tell you, oh, just call us, we'll work with you. That might be true for the first couple of times, but then after that, it's going to be, well, you're just stuck.
We talked about another person who may be entering the payday loan industry. I hope they don't take that path. That is, I'm going to name them Walmart. They have a program, and Walmart's a big corporation, right, folks? They have 1 million plus employees. They started at what they call a payday advance. They can give you an advance on your paycheck, but you can only use it 8 times a year, according to the article. You can Google search this. Google it. It's true. And that's what they're saying. But you and I both know that about a year or two down the road, at some point, they're going to start charging a fee or finance charge or interest rate. It will become a payday loan. At some point, it's like a slippery slope for them. They say they're helping their employees. What if they start out this, okay, it's interest free. They lure you in, get you in the cycle, and at some point, they're going to change.
The Walmart itself is eventually going to want more. We are a nation founded on greed. So,
do you feel that that's a slippery slope?
It most definitely is, and it's a slippery slope for the folks that are going to be entering into those things, because they're like, hey, this hasn't affected me yet. They, take it out of my pay, whatever, for the advance I got. Exactly. It's just like swiping, as Dan Ramsey says, it's just like swiping that card. You don't feel it. It's not there. You don't see it. But it's almost like an addiction for some of these folks. It really is. They get into it and they have good intentions starting out, but then it's I don't get paid until next Friday, but there's an Xbox.
Of the customers are fixed income.
Yeah, I'll get to that here in a second. But you'll get people that are like, I don't get paid until next Friday, but hey, there's an Xbox One on sale for like $250 that has a 1 terabyte hard drive. So I'm gonna go borrow the money and get it. And a lot of it too is instant gratification, and it really does too depend on the people. But that's back to the whole, vicious cycle and getting sucked in and the marketing gimmicks and stuff like that. Now, for folks that are on a fixed income,
how much of that do you see?
Almost half of the folks that I dealt with were on a fixed income. Once again, you can't deny them because that's discrimination. It's their income. They can do with it what they will. What really hurt them is the fact that these are intended to be written to your pay date. So if you're on a fixed income, typically most of the time, not always, you get paid about once a month. Your loan is written to your pay date. So if it's written for longer, once again, this is depending on the company, if it's written for longer than 2 weeks, 90% of the time you have to pay that off in full. And if you borrow the max amount, it will be over $700. And you got to pay it back then. There is a way to make payments on it, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's very difficult to figure out, and it's very hard to explain. Half the time it confuses people, and they have no idea what in the hell they owe.
Right. It's complicated.
Interesting tidbit. I ran into a former client at a laundromat, and we're both like, you look really familiar. And she's trying to place me, and then she's like, well, do you go here? Do you go here? Do you go here? And then eventually she's like, oh, well, do you work here? And it's like, yeah, used to. And she's like, that's where I recognize you from. Even though it wasn't in the Springfield area, it was one of the outlier places. But she's like, oh, that's where I recognize you from. I was like, oh yeah, so just making small talk, trying to be courteous, hey, how you been? And she's like, well, they took all my money and got me evicted. She fell on her times. She got sick, ended up in the hospital.
Sad.
she couldn't come in. She didn't have that. She didn't have a whole lot of family, so nobody, could communicate. And even if they did communicate for her what was going on, they still would have taken the money. So they took all of the money out of her account because it was set up off of her bank, and she didn't come in, so they took it. And she didn't have her money for rent because they took it. They wouldn't give her any more, and she lost her home.
That's sad. That's really sad. But you see that a lot.
Yeah, I see it all the time. I saw it almost every single day.
System in place for all locations, not allowing multiple location loans. Some do.
Some do, some don't. That is absolutely correct. Some places will allow you, if they have multiple locations, to go to store A and then travel down the road and go to store B and borrow. Some places are like, nope, you have a one-stop shop. You can't go to our other locations. One of the companies that I was affiliated with did that. You could go borrow from multiple locations. If it was Payday, you could not go over the $500 limit. Now, if it was any of the other products offered, the title loan you could as well. If you have multiple vehicles, you could have multiple loans out at the locations, but the installment was that was fixed. You couldn't.
When your name is entered into a database, what information do you see on the screen when someone's applying for a loan? What do you see?
When people came in and applied, you got your picture taken and your driver's license copied and a picture of that taken. But I had people's social security numbers, I had their birth dates, their closest friends, family, relatives' phone numbers, and potentially their addresses. I had your most current address.
I'm kind of asking, if they had loans in other stores, would that pop up on your computer, even if they're competitors? If they had other title loans out there?
No.
Would that pop up on your screen?
If they, for example, if somebody had a title loan at Speedy Cash and then went to American Title Max, unless they have the same system and they're affiliated somehow, they're not going to have that and that's actually a privacy violation. So unless they're like sister companies where it's okay they share information, they can't do that because that's a privacy violation. But if it's the same company, so you got Speedy Cash on Battlefield and like a Speedy Cash on National or something.
But they would see if they pulled a credit report, right?
They could potentially. They could. Like I said, some places will do just a soft hit. They really don't care what debt you got. They just want to see, if you got a good credit score or whatever.
Because they don't really want to turn you down. They want to say yes.
Yes, and
that's how they make their money.
Exactly. Getting back to it's how the employees, they will ride the employees to get people to come in to get those loans. They will send employees out to go marketing.
Do they give you any bonuses or incentives to do that?
No.
Why?
Why pay you extra? Just tell you it's part of your job. You got to go do it. If you want to keep your job, go do it.
I'd want an incentive, a bonus. If I brought in this many, I get a reward.
That would have been nice, and I'm sure there are payday lenders out there that do that, but the companies that I was affiliated with didn't do that. We went out and talked to folks, and we went everywhere. It wasn't just competitors. We go to barbershops, vets' offices, doctors' offices, places where it's, oh crap, something happened and this is the location to go to get it fixed or help.
Laundromats are good places to advertise.
Yep. And one of the companies that I was affiliated with, here in Springfield, ironically, I saw one of their advertisements in the laundromat that I go to. So, but anywho, back to marketing and things like that. It even extended so much to telling us that in our own personal time, hey, take our marketing tools.
How much was
with you and just leave them.
Were you paid by the hour or were you paid a salary?
Hour. I was paid by the hour. I made about $10.50-ish an hour.
It's not bad.
It's not bad, but it most definitely was not enough to sustain,
Did you
all my bills.
Did they make you do anything off the clock? Because I sure wouldn't.
No, actually, that is one thing I will give them. The companies that I work for, you didn't do squat off the clock. Even if somebody had to call you when you were already off or on your day off, they clocked you in for the duration of the conversation or whatever and then clocked you out. But it's just, the marketing thing is, it's just, when you go out to eat or something or go to the movies, just nonchalantly leave this here.
So laundromat's the best place, one of the best places.
Yeah.
Plasma centers would be good places, obviously.
Doctors' offices, vets' offices, car repair shops, definitely our competitors. Sometimes we they would strike deals up with competitors. And then, hey, if you can't help somebody out, send them down to us. We'll give you, a incentive. We did incentives for that. The companies that I was affiliated with did referral programs. Refer people, you get $25. Refer people, you get $50.
Another good place would be anybody that sold Keno tickets. Missouri Lottery Keno.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a Keno player playing Keno, good place to advertise.
Oh yeah.
They need gambling money.
Yeah. They I'm sure they did that. Gas stations, you name it, anywhere that people would go or potentially draw a crowd, they do that. A lot of these places too also cash checks. Interesting tidbit about Walmart is that they do cash checks and do.
It's only a $3 charge. I know. I've used
right.
them.
They're cheap, but because they do things, a money service, they have to follow some of the similar rules to payday loan companies in regards to cashing checks and sending money to people. Western Union and MoneyGram, you have to go through, training to recognize fraud, because if you participate in a fraudulent transaction, you can be criminally charged as well.
I took phone calls on my days off.
Wow.
I was paid salary, not always on credit score. I don't know what Joe was working. He said he was paid a salary and he took phone calls on his days off. I wouldn't. Now,
I most definitely wouldn't either.
Now, I guess if you're a realtor, you're always on call.
Right.
Insurance, you're on call. That's just the industry.
Mm-hmm. No, the companies that I work for, they were very adamant on if you weren't on the clock, you didn't work, or you got clocked in.
Scammers will use Western Union, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've actually had a lot of people yell, cuss, complain, and moan when they would come in and be like, I want to send $5,000 to a person in Nigeria I've never met. Okay, why are you doing this? Oh, because they're my internet boyfriend or girlfriend. No, Joe Schmo, that's fraud. They're taking you for a ride. The biggest ones that came across that I saw were grandparent scams, where some random person would get an elderly person's number and call them up and be like, oh my gosh, your grandson, your granddaughter, they're in jail and they need $8,000 to bail them out because they're out of the country. And these elderly folks don't know any better. I mean, back in their day, people's words were their bond. That was it right there. So, and they love their grandkids, so they're going to do what they can to help them. So they're not going to think twice. They're going to go get their money and go try and send it. Boyfriend or girlfriend scams or fiancé scams were another big one, where they'd start talking to these people through, most of the time, online, some dating site or something. And then it gets to the point where it's, I need money. Can you send it to me? Western Union. Or military scams. So some, lonely lady meets somebody online. Oh yeah, I'm in the military. I'm in the Marines, and I'm stuck in Uzbekistan doing some, work that I can't talk about. It's hush hush. And so I ran out of money, so I need, to go get stuff from the commissary. I need to go buy food. I actually had one lady, I kind of felt bad for her. She had a fiance, and she was going to send him a large sum of money. And she showed me all these emails. She was like, yeah, he's in the military, and he is he's still helping with Operation Iraqi Freedom, one of those, and he was supposedly a Marine. My father was a career Marine, 26 years. So my friend actually got it, and I looked at her and I said, don't do that. The military doesn't do this. And so I had to go up and I had to tell this lady, I was like, I understand that you have an emotional attachment here. I get that a lot, but this person is not genuine. This person is not the military. And I told her, hey,
we're gonna have to wrap it up pretty soon, but he's got one last payday loans online are dangerous as well. Yes, Joe, absolutely. I've watched a dog right before preparing. Online, they can come from any country or an Indian reservation, like in Oklahoma. They're hiding inside the Indian tribe, saying we're affiliated with this tribe that gives them sovereignty. Mm-hmm. Explain that to us a little bit, what you do know.
For the online applications, first of all, you'll see those everywhere. You'll see some payday loan places that don't have a physical location. It's all done online. But pretty much, if there is a physical location, it would require the same information as if you physically went into the store. You would just do everything online, and the money would be direct deposited into your account. However, some of the companies that I was affiliated with, their online system was janky and it didn't always work. So you would either be overcharged, undercharged, or your payment just wouldn't go through at all, and then the next day it'd be showing as you didn't make your payment.
Is there any particular companies that we should be like, don't even go there? They're totally shady.
To be honest, all of them, but
there's some that stand out because they be coming from another country, where they were deliberately hiding inside an Indian tribe, and they're just out to scam you 100%. There's no recourse. Did you know of any that are out there that you know that have really taken anybody that audience needs to be aware of,
right?
Especially stay away from?
I honestly, I don't know. I hear a lot of people talk about J.G. Whitworth taking their money.
Oh, that's a scam.
Yeah.
Scam and a half.
Personally, I've never looked into them. I had an older sister that got heavy into the payday loan cycle, and mom bailed her out. So, good old mom. She went and she bailed her out. So I've never had one. I've never looked for one. I've gotten to the point in my life, I will admit, where
it's J.G. Whitworth, aren't they more like if you inherit a lot of money, you want the cash now?
Like I said, I've never really looked into them. I just heard people telling me about them. So it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, I don't need to even remotely go down that road.
Kind of like reverse mortgages, obvious scam.
Yeah.
It sounds too good to be true. It usually is.
But I promise you, if it's strictly online and you can't get some kind of person, either via an instant message or on the phone or something, and start asking them specific questions. Before you do anything online, look up some of the laws in your state, and then just ask them specific questions. Just be like, okay, so I know that there's a max interest in the state of Missouri. I just can't remember what it is. What is that? And if they don't tell you 75%, I promise you it is a scam, or they have somebody that is very negligent.
Anything online, I wouldn't touch it personally. No way. I want to deal with a physical person that I can see and talk to. If like my bank, I can walk and see and talk to a real loan officer, a real human being. At least in your store, even though I wouldn't never walk in the doors, at least I'm talking to a person. Online, nah, I don't.
You're probably getting an automated response too. You wouldn't be talking to a real person, but
I mean, I shop at Amazon, but that's different. We're talking about borrowing money that could ruin your life.
Yeah.
For life.
Yeah. No. Exactly. With the online lending as well, you have to make so much of a payment if you're going to be able to break it up. Some companies won't allow you to make payments, just FYI. But some online sites where you take these loans out, you can go in there and just decide I'm going to pay $20 when really you need to make a $55 payment, and it'll just accept it and kick your new due date over, and that's not doing anything but screwing you in the end, because eventually you get to your last payment and it doesn't matter how many payments you've made beforehand. If you come in and made extra payments, you have a set number of payments, and then on that last payment you got to pay it off. And a lot of people don't. That's something that's either not explained that well, or people don't understand it, or they don't, once again, know to ask.
What time is it?
It is almost 10:30.
Okay, we got we're going an hour and a half. I rarely go this long. Yeah, I've gone an hour and 15 minutes. I've gone an hour and a half once or twice. But I don't want to go so long that now we're going on 2 hours and that we're dragging our feet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's,
and I can talk about this for hours and days.
And I don't want to talk for hours and days, because our viewers may not want to watch this for an hour and a half.
I'm surprised that some of them are still with me instead of telling me to shut up. I'm rambling.
Don't worry, I do the same thing, because once we get on a topic, because even the Jim Baker show, a lot of they keep it at an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already been a little bit past that, but not too extreme. So I'm going to have to say good night, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for our guests. I think we've covered everything.
I think 90% of it.
I think so. There'll be more questions in the comments later on, and I may talk to you again, and then I'll discuss what my Monday night's topic should be, because I want to do a series called Poverty in America, and this issue is one of the chapters. I hope to do others like minimum wage, unemployment, disability, Medicaid, food stamps, you name it. I can do a whole series on the topic. So, thanks for tuning in. Thank you. Thanks, Joe Inman. Thank you, Robert, for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I gotta